Okay, my name is Andy Young and I'm one of the automotive lecturers down at Unitec in Auckland, and this is one of my basic skills videos. This one is pretty short, but it essentially shows you how to remove the insulation off the end of a wire correctly without damaging the internal strands. Now, something to bear in mind is if you damage the end of the wire and some of the strands come off with the insulation, then effectively you've removed some of the integrity of that wire. It's very important that you don't lose any strands when you put them on the connector or whatever you're connecting this wire to, whether it's a crimp connector or you're soldering it or whatever, and we'll come to all that later on, because it's going to increase the resistance. It's going to create a point of resistance on that wire, especially as it gets older. So there's different ways of doing this. Now, I haven't got any scissors here, but I used to live in Spain for a while when I was working with Mercedes-Benz, and it was common practice for a lot of the guys over there, although they were domestic house wiring engineers as opposed to mechanics, they would use scissors to pare back the end of the wires. Now, hey, that's just the way it was. You can use, I often use, or nearly always use, a pair of side cutters. Now these are made by Teng, really good, nice and cheap, good quality. And all I do, you've got to decide first of all how much insulation you want to take away. You can always, adjust it later on. You can just cut the wire down a bit. And all you need to do is, if I can get that to the camera pretty well, there you go, look, is, let's do 10 mil down, is just give it a little nip. So you're not trying to cut the wire, you're just giving it a little nip, and then rotate it 90 degrees and nip it again, but this time hold it. Put your thumb on the actual back of the tool there, look. So you've got something to lever against, and then just lever away, and you'll find that insulation comes away from the end of the wire. I'll do that again for you, I'll just snip that off. Okay, so we'll start again, and you just basically give it a little crimp, but not too hard, and it's all about practice. The more you do it, the more feel you'll get for this. But we'll give it one, and then you rotate it 90 degrees, crimp again in the same place, but I'm hardly putting any pressure on. It's just enough to not even cut through the insulation. It's just to create a weak point. And then you use your thumb, put your thumb on the back of the tool, and then grip the wire tight, and then just lever it off. And there you go, look, it just snaps the rest of the insulation. It leaves a really clean cut, and there's no real possibility of you actually damaging the wiring. It's all down to how much pressure you put on the tool. And it's a good idea just to have a little practice. And once you've done that, just give the wire a little twizzle in your fingers, and then she's ready for doing whatever you want, whether it's soldering, putting a crimp connector on, or whatever. There are other tools that you can buy for doing this. And these are really good. These sort of take the feel away from the whole thing. They take a little bit longer to use, in my opinion. Although if you're paring back or bearing back a lot of the same section wire, the same size wire, once this tool is set, then it's very, very simple. Now, you'll notice it's got a little wheel on the side. Now that wheel essentially controls how far apart those jaws, just see the little hole at the end. So the more I wind that wheel in, let's get the lock nut back. The more I wind that in, the bigger the hole remains in those jaws. And if I wind it back the other way, then of course that hole disappears. Now, it's relative to the section of wire. So you need to have a look at the wire and go, okay, it's about that big, and Yorkshire's yay big. And you sort of make it about what you think it is. Lock it off so that can't move. And then all you do then is insert the wire as far down as you want to take the insulation off. There you go, look. Give it a crimp. You'll feel it cut through the rubber. And again, use your thumb and just pare it out. Now, on that one, yeah, we've got a few strands left over in there, which means we've done a bad thing. Bad Andy. We've done a bad thing there. And we need to increase the size of the gap that's left on the tool. Now to do that, we just loosen off the lock nut, and then we screw it in a little bit more, lock it off. We'll cut that off the end of there, and we'll try again. Now, it is important that you set these right. If you're going to use them, then it's worth spending a few minutes just getting it set. So again, I've just adjusted it. Crimp. Now this time I didn't feel it cut any metal, and then we'll give it a pull back. There we go. Look, any more in there? No, that's pretty good actually. Okay, so with a bit of fine tuning, you can get these really good, and they do become pretty quick. But for me, I actually prefer using the side cutters, and for me, it's pretty quick too. You know, I've done it for years. It's the way it works, and it's instantly adjusted to any size wire because my brain does the adjustment. Okay, but it's your choice. I wouldn't recommend using scissors. Sorry, James in Spain, if you're still around. It was a long time ago. Hopefully you are. Good lad. This is what I use. Works for me. You may find these easier. They're more. Oh, foolproof's the wrong word because I'm not trying to say anybody's a fool. But they are a tool for the job. But it does mean, if you're having one in the toolbox, it's more space to take up. If I go on a long trip anywhere and I've got lots of other gear in the car, I want to try and keep my toolkit to a bare minimum, but can do maximum different kinds of repairs. So I can use these for all sorts of stuff. Whereas these are only wire cutters. That's all they're designed for. Okay, so that's how to pare back the insulation on a wire, or a couple of different ways of doing it. I'm sure there's lots of other ways that people use, but that works for me. That's the two different ways that I use. I hope you found this video helpful. When you're working on a vehicle, often you have to do a bit of wiring, and it's quite good to know how to pare back the wires properly. One thing I would strongly recommend that you don't use, which one of my friends used when I was at school, was his teeth. He was biting the wire with his teeth and then pulling the insulation off. He didn't do that after he pulled one of his teeth out there. That stopped him. And then he bought some of these. Okay, so there you go. My name's Andy Young. I'm one of the automotive lecturers down at Unitec in Auckland, and I hope you found this basic skills video helpful. Cheers, over and out.